Though it is very beautiful, it is also very haunted. It has had an incredibly long history, and not all of it has been beautiful and genteel. I'm not a person that's scared of darkness. I'm not a person that is scared of thinking about the darker things in life. A lot of my work for a long time has been very informed by grief and my response to grief. And I think when you are in nature and on country, you have to be thinking about grief. You have to be thinking about the continuation of what happens after death and the eternity of country versus the tiny little finite reality of life. So though the work I photograph looks really, really dark, I'm always photographing in daylight. And the reason for that is quite simply like my safety and the reality of being a woman and being out in public spaces where people think they can always access you. Though the place I photograph, the nature and country of it, I don't feel remotely scared of. I do worry about my safety from other humans. That is the reason that my dog is always with me when I photograph, and he has learnt to kind of be my guardian when I photograph. So when we moved to the area, I began exploring the Police Paddocks. And it has now become somewhere that I go every single day, so I walk my dog there. He kind of informed my initial relationship with Police Paddocks. Because I would be there early, there is no one around, I'm there for the fog, the rain, the early morning kangaroo breakfasts. And it's become a place that I've become really intimately familiar with because I spend so much time there. I see the changing of the seasons. I also see the changing of the atmosphere that can happen in that place as well, which makes me feel really deeply connected to it. And part of the reason I photograph it is because I have this relationship with it. Police Paddocks was originally a very important place for all of the people of the Kulin Nations. It was a meeting place, and Bunurong Creek was a place of incredible ecological biodiversity. Because of the way that I photograph and the way I photograph that place, I want to show it with a lot of reverence and a lot of magic, because that's what I feel when I'm there. I feel like I'm in a place which is very important, and I feel like when I'm there I can feel that link back to thousands and thousands of years. Though I find the place very peaceful, I think that's also layered into the work as well, this idea of darkness, this idea of eternity, the idea of death and rebirth, and the idea of celebrating that darkness in life as well. I'm someone that leans a little bit more towards melancholy anyway, and I think that when I'm at Police Paddocks and it's quiet and I'm there by myself with my dog and my camera, I can experience that sense of melancholy in a really beautiful and productive way. So this place is important. I want to photograph it in a way that gives it that importance and that presence. And I love the idea that as much as possible, a negative is eternal in the same way that I feel like this place is. For me, it's really important that I pay reverence to the place, and I think shooting in that way really helps me. And then of course, when it comes to the actual images, the aberrations that you get from film, especially the way that I develop and the way that I scan and process the kind of final image, I think it almost feels like there's an imprint of the place left on the images that I just don't know that I could achieve if I wasn't shooting this way. The first time that I made a negative that looked sort of like the images that I do now, there was a mistake in my developing, or something had happened where I had marks all over the image, and it was quite interesting. And then the way that I was scanning my images during lockdown, which I still quite often do, is I would just place the negative up against my window and re-photograph it with a digital camera. And so then there were layers that would come in from the window and things that added an extra level of texture, I'd say, to the images. Once that started happening, I just started to really lean into it. So that kind of materiality of the film is really important to me. And whenever I get the chance to print, I love to do it because I think there's something about that kind of fallibility of film, which I think I've almost become like addicted to in the way that I work now. What has always drawn me back is the animals that live there, and the species that is the most visible there is certainly the eastern grey kangaroo. I grew up around the city. I had never spent time around kangaroos. I had a deep affinity for animals, but kangaroos always seemed like they were exotic and in the outback, and not for little suburban girls like me. They were something else. So when we moved and I was suddenly in daily proximity of these incredible beings, I started to sort of think about how I was sharing this space with them. And when I am there photographing, it is so clearly their habitat, not mine. And then also just watching them through the seasons. So the way that kangaroos respond to the changing weather. So kangaroos have existed there on the ground for 15 million years. So they were here when dinosaurs were here. It's very important to me that anyone that I'm photographing doesn't come to any harm, doesn't feel under any stress. So when I work with the large formats, what I like about it is I feel like the animal has absolute autonomy about whether or not they want to be photographed in a way that maybe wouldn't happen with a digital camera. I think there's something about feeling the presence of the animal, connecting with them through the camera, them deciding if they want to stay or not. It's about them making that decision. And because the large format takes time, they have time to move away from me. I'm planted where I am. So I think it kind of becomes an exchange in that way. I think it's like one of the most horrible hangovers from colonialism, that everything has to have a use, and can't it just be? And I think that transferable to the invasive species, exactly as you said, when it's useful to us, it's no problem, but when we don't understand it, or we have no kind of clear use for it, it becomes a pest and it becomes demonised. And I guess I also think of that with the place that I photograph. It's fairly neglected compared to a lot of other spaces, and certainly for how important it is to Bunurong people and how important it is as a historical site. It is relatively abandoned because it's not useful, and it doesn't kind of have that tourist kind of cachet that maybe some other bigger state parks do. But I don't think that makes it any less beautiful or interesting. I just think it makes it different to what we think of nature as being.